Aloha aina, ano ai, velina kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau-Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumu filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Aloha ia mai o kou a e maluhia hoi ke akua. Velina me ke aloha. Mahalo nui for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News. Today, our show is full of reports and viewpoints from all over Hawaii nei and around the world, relating to a free Hawaii. My co-host, Hinaleimoana Wong, is away on assignment, but we will be hearing from her by remote. The recent Maui fires have not only left destruction, but also highlighted Maui's housing crisis, as well as a housing crisis all across Hawaii nei. This crisis, which was present before the fires, is now leaving many in Lahaina and Maui's west side community grappling with finding housing, as well as the dawning reality that the longtime west side residents will likely be priced out of their neighborhoods for good. Because so many west side and Lahaina residents are now refugees in their own land, it has ignited a call for change. Because so many residents were in danger of being kicked out of their temporary housing to make way for tourists, last month Lahaina and West Side residents set up fishing for housing on a anapali beach to publicize the fact that residents will soon be without shelter while tourists are vacationing in the very rooms fire victims were evicted from. So this is something that we need to discuss because of what area that we call the Pacific Way. And I just wanted to give my opinions and my insights about what's happening there in Lahaina, and this dichotomy of how the emphasis is on the visitors or the tourists and on the monies that they bring in, rather than on the needs and the emergency that is going on right under their noses. So the Pacific Way is really to take care of the people, the local people first. And I'm not saying that as a matter of being discriminatory, but those people who live here are the ones that really need to be attended to in an emergency such as this. Instead, Maui seems to have said that, well, you've had enough time to recover, we've put you up in these houses long enough, now you need to move on. Or they're saying, well, you're staying in this one too long, so we'll shift you to someplace else. We have people who are moving from place to place, sometimes day to day, sometimes week to week, moving to these different residences or this different housing because there is no permanent housing or no long-term housing for them to go to. It is a real big problem, and so we want to talk about putting people first, particularly putting the local people first, before trying to open up for commerce in order to make monies and in order to try to settle down the economy. Let's go now to Maui, where my co-host Hinaleimoana Wong is standing by. Aloha, Hina.
Aloha mai, Leon. Mahalo. Mahalo anui. Ke aloha nui no ia oe. Mahalo anui ia oe ka aua mo ana ki koleana mai ke la au au. Me ke aloha nui ia uko e noho kipa. Mai ko oko mo wahi e kipa mai nei. Aloha. This is Hinaleimoana patching in to you from here in Honokohau on Maui. For this time that I've come to spend on Maui, I am fortunate that I got a chance to come home here to Honokohau and to touch the land and to let my family Aina help to rejuvenate me, even if it's just for a minute. When I come here, it gives me a chance to touch base with home and touch base with a place that I know my kupuna once ran around and lived life. And my family still lives here. I'm thankful that they maintain the land that I'm privileged to come back to. For many of our Kanaka don't have any land to go to at all. But coming here makes me think of the segment on this show that I contribute to, and that is talking about the Pacific Way. Pacific Way is the Hawaiian Way. It is the Tongan Way, the Samoan Way, the Tahitian Way, and all of the myriad of islands that are families of the South, all the islands that they live on, including ours here in Hawaii. So when we talk about Pacific Way, it is that old time Hawaiian way of living, way of thinking, and way of seeing the world. And as I reflect on this time that I've come to spend on Maui for the Native Hawaiian Convention by the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, I reflect upon Mayor Bison's words and the leadership that he endeavors to maintain. And when it comes to one of the most prevalent topics that is impacting our friends and families on Maui, and that which they are raising their voices to as they gather at Ka'anapali on the seashore, and not only bringing awareness, but holding ground there to say to not only government officials, but to say to those in economic power and capacity, for all of those folks who have the ability to help provide for our island people in our time of need. They are there to assert their presence and to ensure that our presence is not overlooked, and to also ensure that by actions that might seem innocuous to some would be utterly detrimental to our very own. And so when we look at families and friends who have been displaced by the tragic fires that happened in August in Lahaina, so many families continue to be unstable in their living situations. And so when we look at the topic of temporary housing and temporary accommodation, that temporary is not necessarily temporary just for a few days or just for a few weeks, but temporary meaning that until such time that our communities, homes, and lives can be utterly rebuilt out of the ashes, our people need stability. And one of those locations of stability, in addition to short-term rental homes, are also the hotels that are there along Ka'anapali. And I believe that our people lament the fact that the economic driving factors of Maui and the greater whole of Hawaii really serve to push our people beyond what I believe is reasonable in terms of being able to stand up again after such tragedy. And so in Mayor Bison's words to our community, saying that he has the ability to force people in places such as hotels and landowners, he has that ability to require them to provide for us because it is an emergency situation. But I respect Mayor Bison for the leadership that he's trying to maintain, for it is a very precarious place to be when one is a leader and one must answer to the community and to your own people. And when I say our own people, especially, I mean our Lahui Kanaka, our Native Hawaiian population that is on that side of Maui. And our people look to him to not abandon them and to not leave them without and leave them forsaken to be able to navigate these times require everyone to have the greatest of heart, the greatest of patience, of which are all part of our Pacific way. They're all part of the old Hawaiian way that unfortunately that way remains now only the true go-to way of life for some. And as Maui and the larger whole of Hawaii become inundated with foreigners, whether they come from America or other places overseas, um, they often don't know our ways, and many will try to learn it, but that's where sometimes that's where the controversy comes in, everyone, because not everyone will truly understand how limitless and how boundless the word aloha is. So aloha is not only hello and goodbye and love in our culture here in Hawaii, but it is also honor, dignity, and respect. It conveys this great sense of kuleana and duty. If you aloha your people, you will ensure that you do all that you can to make sure they're provided for, that they are not left without, and that they also will have the means and the support to reestablish and reinstate their stability to their lives. So again, looking at the situation in Ka'anapali, that is quite a deplorable situation because our people, our own island people, not only Kanaka, but other Kama'aina as well. And those are the very ones who are a part of the labor force and a part of all of those who provide that Pacific way, the Hawaiian way. We are the ones that the visitor experience is contingent upon. They're the foreigners who come to our shores came in part, largely in part, to the experience and the human interaction that they could have here in Hawaii. So that is directly attributed to it's attributed to our ability to be who we are as a people and to be that Hawaiian. So I can only encourage and echo what Mayor Bisson has said, um, in saying that he hopes not to force people, but he hopes that there will be compliance amongst those in the business sector and especially amongst the hotel leadership, as well as private homeowners. He hopes that there will be aloha in the hearts, the minds, and the spirit of those who can make a difference. So if any of you are listening out there and you can make that difference, this is Kumu saying to all of you, that is our Pacific Island way. That is the true Hawaiian way, where there is no bound, no limit, and no parameters when it comes to aloha and the extent that we are able to really put it to the test. And extreme times call for extreme measures, and this is one such time. So for anyone who can make a difference, please remember our Kanaka, remember our Kama'aina, and remember that without us, there is no aloha in Hawaii.
Mahalo, Hina. Mahalo for your always insightful comments. And that is the Pacific Way. Last month, the Land Board held a hearing on the 30-meter telescope construction permit. At issue was whether the University of Hawaii and others had actually completed and complied with the construction permit conditions or not. If they did not, they would have to go through the process again of getting a new construction permit approved. And that would require public hearings, which the University of Hawaii, Pueo, and others do not want to have to do because large public opposition to building the TMT would then be made public. To explain all of this and to give us an update on how this meeting went, we go now to Hawaii Island, where Mauna Kea Kiaʻi, or protector, Kalani Flores, is standing by. Aloha, aloha mai Kalani.
Tātou pauroa, mahalo nui na tui ana, mai ka piko ka mauna wā kea, mai kia moku o ki awe, iao pauroa, mahalo nui na tui ana, mahalo nui na tui ana. So from the piko of Mauna wā kea, from here, the moku, from the island of Hawaii, we send our greetings out to all of you, and we thank you folks for allowing us to be on your program.
Kalani, you attended the November 7th Land Board public hearing, didn't you?
We were at this most recent Land Board meeting on November 7th, 2023. And on behalf of myself and on behalf of the Flores case Ohana, as well as the other Kiaʻi, we provided our oral arguments and our positions to the agenda item that was before us.
You and all the other Mauna Kea Kiaʻi are saying that they actually did not continue construction by 2019, which was within the required 2-year period, and therefore their construction permit expired. Yes?
The project itself, and which is the university and the TIO, had made these false assertions that they actually initiated construction, and they listed several different items saying that they initiated construction. But yet they didn't provide any evidence, they didn't provide any proof. They actually initiated what they're saying they initiated construction. And so when you go through the list, you start to check off that they're false. These are false statements without any evidence saying that they actually did these aspects of construction. And one of the things they said that they're saying that they initiated construction was the removal of these ahu, these shrines on the Mauna. But when you look at it initially, besides being an act of desecration and destruction for Native Hawaiian cultural practitioners, what it really comes down to is that the university and TIO had played no role in removing those items. Those are actually a law enforcement action that was taken and done by DLNR and the DOCARE and other law enforcement officers actually did the action. So here is bringing forth and being written on a correspondence and saying, "Oh, we did this action, so we initiated construction," and it's totally false. They were not even involved in this action. So right there, the first item on the list is false and inaccurate, and we have evidence substantiating that it was a law enforcement action, wasn't done by university, wasn't done by TIO, but yet they're claiming credit for it as being initiated construction. So when you start going down their list of things they're saying initiated construction, they're false or inaccurate.
Tell us how the University of Hawaii and Pueo are claiming that they've continued construction on Mauna Kea.
One of the permits they needed was the Conservation District Use Permit. And that kind of lays out the groundwork of what is involved with this construction, what are some mitigation plans. This permit is issued by the Department of Land and Natural Resources. The board actually issues the permit, the Board of Land and Natural Resources. And so that's referred to as a CDUP. But in addition to that permit, they also have to have a permit from the County of Hawaii. They needed a grading permit. They need also a stockpiling permit. In addition to that, they need several permits from the Department of Health. One is a noise variance permit, and the other is a community noise permit as well. And they also needed this other permit referred to as the NPDES permit. And that permit is referred to as a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. And that particular permit is regulated by federal laws and regulations, and is also applied to state laws. So you need all these permits. Even before you can move the equipment and start work, you need this. And before you can even initiate construction, you need all these permits in place. It's been shown that they actually didn't have all these permits in place at the time they said that they initiated construction. But let's go back to 2015. So in 2015, when the project attempted to move construction equipment on top of Mauna Wakia, and there was hundreds of people came and stopped those construction crews from moving up to the mountain. They were justified at that time because there are cases, and not just our, but there's a case moving forward challenging this initial CDUP that was given out by the board. And it was our contention that they didn't follow due process of law. So when the project got stopped in 2015, with the various people going up on a mountain and stopping that project, they were justified in doing so because in the end, the Hawaii Supreme Court came out with a decision that invalidated the initial CDUP permit. And they said, you guys didn't follow due process. It was a violation of due process. So they invalidated the permit, and that's why I had to come back for a second contested case hearing. So now we fast forward to 2019. They're moving ahead with construction. The former chair, Suzanne Case, gave them the notice to proceed with construction, but they were moving ahead with construction and it did not have all the permits in place as they needed to. And so when this project was halted, when the kupuna got arrested in 2019, and the people had gathered up there up in Mauna Kea near the area of Pu'uhuluhulu, and peaceful and nonviolent protest of what was happening, they were justified once again because this project did not have all its permits in place.
So it sounds like those who want to try to build a TMT are attempting to pull a fast one here, correct?
Everybody's trying to push this project through and not following the rules and the state rules, state laws, federal rules, federal guidelines, regulations. It's like that from the beginning, from going back to 2015, pushing ahead with a project when they didn't follow the rules. Now the same thing, 2019, pushing ahead with a project because they're on the TMT project's timeline. And at that time, they're not taking due diligence and reviewing all the permits, reviewing all the documents. That was never done. When these things are put out and made note of, then you see there's cover-ups that try to cover it up. Because when you look at it, none of the activities that happened in 2019 should have occurred. People shouldn't have been arrested. The county and state shouldn't have paid somewhere around $15 million for law enforcement actions for this event, that these activities that occurred in 2019. All these things should have never occurred. The construction equipment should never even been on a road if this project never had all their permits in place. And it's not even about the TMT project. So whether you for or against the TMT, this matter, it's not even about that. It's about who takes responsibility to ensuring that anyone who comes before the board or any other agency or department, whether at the state level, the county level, or at the federal level, that they're following rules and laws. Then if not, then why have a permit? Why have a permit with all these conditions if you're not going to enforce those conditions or make sure the permittee is following the proper rules and laws?
But are they really ready right now to build a TMT?
The problem with this project, when you look at the project, is they never had sufficient funds to actually finish and complete this project. That's where it's at right now. They're in desperate need of funds. So this project, when they first initiated this project, the project was looking at roughly $1.2 billion for this project. Now the project is up. The cost of the estimate of this project, based upon documents have been filed, is over $3.1 billion. And the project is short right now, roughly $1.5 billion. And so now they're looking for National Science Foundation funds, which are federal monies, which are our tax monies, to fund this project. So when you look at the project, it's very apparent that they underestimated, whether intentionally or not, underestimated the actual true cost of this project. And now they're trying to come and get taxpayers' monies to complete or finish this project. The project is in dire straits of they don't have sufficient funding, so they're not fiscally viable, what I'm saying, for a project to move forward at this time anyway.
The Mauna Kea Hui and other kia'i or protectors are the ones who are holding University of Hawaii and others accountable to not to try to cheat this process, yes?
So it's actually a collective. So although maybe just a few of us who are in the court systems or challenging and aspects of whether it's through a contested case hearing or whether it's going to be for hearings before the board or other departments and trying to make them accountable, is actually more than just those who are there in front. There's like thousands and thousands of people that have come and supported the protection of Mauna Awakea, acknowledging that has a cultural significance to not just Hawaiians and Native peoples, but all peoples throughout the world. This is a very significant mountain, and there's a sacredness connected to this mountain. The sacredness is in the name itself. The name, this ancient name that you find in chants and in other accounts, Mauna Awakea. And so in the name itself, that you find in early chants and other accounts, it tells us, it establishes why this mountain is sacred, why it's important. And it's not just for us as Kanakas, as natives, as Hawaiians and so forth, but many people around the world. This mountain is very significant in many other ways that I can even explain in this one particular show or program.
Mahalo nui kalani. It is estimated that when Captain Cook arrived in the Hawaiian Islands in 1778, that there were nearly 800,000 Hawaiians living and thriving on these islands. By the time of the fake annexation in 1898, the native Hawaiian population had plummeted to 40,000. Within 20 years, that number had halved again to 20,000. During the latter half of the 1900s and into the days of the territory of Hawaii, many thousands of Hawaiians had been dispossessed of their lands by the large sugar plantations and other commercial enterprises in Hawaii. In 1920, Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalanianaole, as a delegate to the U.S. Congress, got a bill passed called the Hawaiian Homestead Act. The purpose of the act was to place the few remaining Hawaiians back onto the land so they could sustain themselves and their families. However, those in charge of the distribution of those lands found many excuses to not distribute the Hawaiian homelands, but instead leased the best lands to their plantations and other commercial interests, and to sell to the wealthier members of the population and to foreigners. Under the administration by the U.S. federal government, very few lots were allocated to the Hawaiians waiting on the list. Then, in 1959, when the territory of Hawaii became the state of Hawaii, the U.S. federal government turned the administration of Hawaiian homes over to the state of Hawaii. There was some improvement, but not much. Tens of thousands of Hawaiians who qualified for land died waiting for their lands to be awarded. Today, there are still over 28,000 Hawaiians on the waiting list. 24 years ago, our next guest, Leona Mapuana Kalima, filed a class action lawsuit taking the state of Hawaii to court for failing to award homesteaders, the Hawaiian homesteaders, their lands, those who have been waiting for decades on the Hawaiian homestead list. Last year, after a decades-long legal fight for their land rights, Hawaiians on the Kalima case won an unprecedented settlement of $328 million. With us in our studio today to give us an update is Leona Mapuana Kalima, the lead plaintiff in the case. Aloha mai, Leona.
Aloha, Leon. Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Once again, congratulations on this monumental breakthrough in the courts. I know we talked about it before in a previous episode, but many of our viewers don't really know about what happened. So could you kind of give us a brief update about what happened when you heard the case had resolved?
$328 million to settle our case.
So you learned it from the newspaper?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and
So-
then after that, people started calling me up. Yeah.
How many were involved in the case?
We're
originally?
looking at maybe about 2,700 plus in that ballpark number.
And then by the time the case was decided, how many were left?
1,100 died.
Oh my.
So that's almost half. Almost half the plaintiffs. How I got involved is that, for one, my application was lost, would you believe? And then towards the end, there was a lot of people who were fighting for the individual claims. And I was a housing counselor at OHA at the time. So they asked if we could do it. So I did it, and it's a good thing I did, because I checked and my application was missing. Little did I know it would be 24 years later that we got a resolve to this case. But praise the Lord, we did.
Yes.
You know, and I was
Yes.
still here to see it.
So what has been the response or reaction since then?
Tell you the truth, we had an appeal that kind of delayed the checks, which was supposed to be mailed in September.
That was filed in August at the last
before
day.
the daytime. Right. And that set the stop. So no monies or anything were transferred. But unprecedented, what I wanted to say is the Hawaii Supreme Court, after the filing date, within a week, I want to say even 3 days, they took it and they dismissed the appeal, and it was ready to go again. You know, so that was like, oh, you know.
So it opened up the way for the funds to be released.
Yeah,
then.
the funds had to be released because it was in a certain part of the government, and then it has to go through, I guess, whatever place, DAGS, whatever, Department of Accounting and General Services, DAGS, and it has to go to this company that it's named Epics, and apparently they do things like this with general class action lawsuits.
I see.
Yeah.
So they'll be responsible for
Yes.
cutting the checks and distributing the funds.
Yes. So we're still waiting
People
on
must be
that.
pretty happy about that.
Well, you know, a lot of the demand is like, where's my check? Where's my money? That's phone calls I get and stuff. And it's like, where were you for 24 years? You know, it's like, man, we fought this case up and down, in and out. And it's like, yeah, you know, we would have loved that numbers. We would have liked to really be in their face. I don't know if that would have made it any sooner. But what had happened and what explained to me was that the state didn't have the money to pay. I mean, 300 million, you know, that's a whole thing in itself. But I think part of that was COVID. That COVID could take care of some of the bills the state had, you know, with health and education and all that stuff. And then that opened some money up for us to get a settlement.
Well, it's
from the
interesting
state.
because I think the Kalima case also triggered the state of Hawaii to also release some other funds, or
Yes,
because after that the Kalima case was settled, or the judgment came out, then the state legislature actually appropriated something like $600 million.
Yes, they did.
For Hawaiian
Yes, they
Homeland.
did.
So where do we go from here? Now that there's some monies to work with, what's your vision for that?
My vision is I want to create wealth. I want to create wealth for our people. There is a precedence that this case has set that we may never see again. It's actually money in hand to our beneficiaries. That has never been done before. Okay, so I am trying to tell our beneficiaries, save money, because you'll never see a check in the mail like this for you again. You know, although people are talking Kalima too. But it's like, what do you do with that money? Department of Hawaiian Homelands has $600 million and they're building. And they're going to be, we've been talking with them. them and OHA, like, let's look at some lands around. Let's purchase some lands. Look at the development, because they do the RFP thing. And let's look at our people. They've been waiting forever, including dying on the list. You know, I've gotten to a point where I've called them the genocide dying list, no longer the waiting list, because, you know, that's kind of burnt out. But it's like, save your money. We're looking at options. What if you had an option to buy a house now, and you actually got money for a down payment? You actually got some money in the bank, you know? And we're looking at different loan products that our people no longer, like lender of last resort. That is my mantra. Okay, lender of last resort. In the Homestead Act, it talks about Department of Hawaiian Homelands being lender of last resort. They were never. You know, you get called, you can't afford it, you're back on the bottom of the list.
What you're saying is lender of last resort is that if you've gone to the financial institutions, asked for a loan or mortgage, and you get denied time and time over, the last resort is to go to Hawaiian Homelands.
Yes.
And they're supposed to be able to
and they never had the money to do it. So we're looking at that now.
Do now.
Yeah, we're
see.
looking at that now.
Yeah.
You know,
there seems to be a lot of things that need to be fixed with Hawaiian Homelands.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
You mentioned looking around to buy more lands, but they have lands. The Hawaiian Homes has lands. So that has to be developed.
Yes.
And they need funds to do so.
Yes.
And then it seems like there has to be some changes also so that beneficiaries could actually access loans in the standard financial
yes,
yes,
because that's part of the problem too.
System.
You know, like if you don't qualify, you're back on the bottom.
And I think one of the things that hinders qualification is the fact that lenders won't allow you to use the land as collateral.
True.
Because it's leased land, or actually it's Hawaiian leased lands. Other leased lands can be used as collateral, but not Hawaiian leased lands.
And we are looking at that. You know, people who are smarter than I about these things, we've been having conversations about how do we not put people who have been waiting on that list for so long back on the bottom because they didn't financially qualify. Save your money. I'm telling our people, save your money. We're talking to see if we can build a house. We don't want you to go Vegas. We want you to stay here. You know, and in fact, we're even being outnumbered as far as us and them. So, you know, it's not just a lawsuit and 27 years. It's what's been done within these 27 years, not in sovereignty, in land ownership, in education. That's us. We have to build our nation from all those perspectives.
It looks like we've turned a corner because one, there's some funding, like you said, to work with. And if we use it wisely and if we direct it in a way so that people actually get into homes and can start building, like you say, a life and wealth, you know, that would really be something. So I think one of the good things about this, about the Kalima case, is that it helped us turn that corner.
Yes,
it woke people
it's unprecedented.
up. And it actually woke up the authorities who had been sitting on their hands all these years. I really look forward to where we're going. And mahalo for sharing that, and mahalo for being the soldier to puka through. And I just wish you all the best. This year, 2023 is the 180th anniversary of an historic moment. November 28, 1843 was the day the United Kingdom and the Kingdom of France jointly proclaimed their recognition of the Hawaiian Kingdom as a sovereign nation, equal in status with all the major powers of the world. In 1843, King Kamehameha III declared November 28th as La Ku'okoa, Hawaii Independence Day, a national holiday to be celebrated throughout the Hawaiian Kingdom. And for 50 years, La Ku'okoa and La Ho'iho'i'ea, Sovereignty Restoration Day, were enthusiastically celebrated as the prime national holidays of the Hawaiian Kingdom. But in 1894, the self-proclaimed Republic of Hawaii adopted the American Thanksgiving Day to be celebrated instead of La Ku'okoa as part of a deliberate denationalizing program to erase any celebration of Hawaii as a sovereign independent country. It worked. For nearly 100 years, we forgot we had been a sovereign nation. But about 30 years ago, Uncle Kekuni Blaisdell and a few Hawaii Kia'i began to remind us and rekindle awareness of our great legacy as an enlightened, independent Hawaiian nation. Today, La Ku'okoa and La Ho'iho'i Ea are proudly celebrated throughout Ko Hawaii Pai'aina and in other places around the world where Hawaiians live. Why is this important, and how does this relate to the United Nations? Because despite the 125-year-long presence and usurpation of the Hawaiian Islands, and despite the 125-year-long subjugation of the Hawaiian people, the permanence of La Ku'okoa, the international recognition of Hawaii's sovereignty, prevented the United States from extinguishing the sovereignty of the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Islands. Even the United States apology in 1993 clearly admits that neither the government nor the Hawaiian people relinquished the sovereignty of the lands or government of Hawaii. The truth is, the Hawaiian Kingdom still exists as a sovereign state, a sovereign country. The United States' presence in Hawaii is an act of piracy. Hawaii is not a part of the United States. Hawaii is being held captive. Approaching the mid-19th century, European countries were continuing their centuries-long obsession of colonizing lands of native peoples. Pacific Island nations were being swallowed whole by European colonial powers. King Kamehameha III, seeing this trend, sought to prevent this from happening to his island kingdom. Having declared his kingdom as a Christian nation in the early days of his reign, and with the vast majority of his people embracing Christianity, the king in 1839 issued a Hawaiian Declaration of Rights, and in 1840 enacted a constitution for the Hawaiian Islands, balancing biblical truths and democratic principles of liberty along with Hawaiian values of aloha aina, malama, and pono as the basis for the governance of the Hawaiian Islands. Thus, having embraced Christianity and instituting a form of democracy, Hawaii could not be regarded as a heathen nation and was therefore exempt from colonialization under the Europeans' so-called doctrine of discovery. To ensure against colonial ambitions by European powers, King Kamehameha III sent 3 trusted envoys, Timoteo Ha'alilio, William Richards, both of them Hawaiian subjects, and Sir George Simpson, a British subject, on a mission to America and Europe for the purpose of securing recognition of Hawaii's sovereignty by the 3 most powerful nations on earth, Great Britain, France, and the United States. Led by Ha'alilio, the envoys succeeded. In a formal proclamation issued on November 28, 1843 at the Court of London, representatives of the Crown of the United Kingdom and the Kingdom of France signed a joint proclamation recognizing the Hawaiian Kingdom as a sovereign nation. The United States followed suit several months later. These acts of recognition meant the Hawaiian Kingdom was accepted and would thereafter be regarded as an equal sovereign by 3 of the most prominent members of the exclusive club of sovereign nations known as the Family of Nations. The Hawaiian Kingdom was able to pry open the door to the Family of Nations, not only for the Hawaiian Kingdom to enter, but for others to follow a century later. One of the greatest tragedies of being under the rule of the United States has been the loss of connection to the larger ohana of Moana Nui, our Pacific family. Yes, we have connections through our language, culture, customs, genealogies, canoe traditions, and we have people-to-people relations. But what about nation-to-nation relations? What about the issues we face as the peoples of this vast ocean? While the rest of the nations of Moana Nui Akiwa interact and work with each other on crucial matters through organizations such as the Pacific Islands Forum, the Polynesian Leaders Group, the Melanesian Spearhead Group, the UN Pacific SIDS, and so forth, sadly, Hawaii is glaringly absent from the picture. Yes, some of our people engage as experts and contributors to the discourse on issues faced by the Pacific Islands, but because Hawaii is regarded as a state of the United States and not an independent nation, Hawaii has no significant voice and certainly no decision-making role in the Pacific. Unfortunately, the one that presumes to speak for us in international matters as well as domestic policy is the United States, and we know how clueless they are about what's in our best interest or the nature of our island ways. The tragedy of Lahaina is the most recent glaring example. The Red Hill fuel storage crisis threatening to poison the drinking water for 1/3 of the population of Hawaii, the crisis of housing and living at below poverty levels, and so forth. These are the problems that we face that the United States is not addressing. Over the years, as I have attended Pacific regional meetings and conversed with heads of states, diplomats, parliamentarians, and chiefs, they invariably mention they would be very happy if Hawaii, as the Hawaiian nation, not the U.S. state, was to become an active member of the Pacific family of nations to help with the critical issues facing our islands. It was the intent of several of our kings, especially Kalakaua, to bring together our ohana of Moana Nui Akiwa to work for the betterment of our peoples and nations. This great vision was rudely dashed by the assault and abduction of our nation by the United States. Fortunately, we are on the verge of overturning that wrongful taking and restoring the Hawaiian Islands as a sovereign independent nation. The irony is that Hawaii, which was recognized as a sovereign nation long before anyone else in the Pacific, will be among the last to reclaim our place in this extraordinary family of nations and join the voyage as our wayfaring ancestors did to navigate the path for our future. We believe that as we recall and become grounded and anchored in the Pacific way, the ways of our ancestors, Mālama'aina, Kapu Aloha, Kuleana, and with the significant practical experience we have as a modern economic, geopolitical, and cultural hub, we Hawaiians have much to contribute to advance Aloha Aina to better the lives of the people of the Pacific and the planet. There is a key reason for reestablishing our relations with our Pacific Island cousins. Because they are sovereign nations and members of the United Nations, our Pacific Island cousins are in a strategic position to help us access and initiate an action at the United Nations General Assembly that will trigger a procedural review that will lead to a free Hawaii. Specifically, a procedural review of the resolution that was passed by the United Nations in 1959 that will ultimately lead to discrediting the United States report that the Hawaiians had consented to statehood in the U.S., thus abandoning their sovereign status. The procedural review will reveal that the United Nations, by adopting Resolution 1469 accepting the United States false report, erroneously consigned the Hawaiian Islands to be a domestic state of the United States, in essence arbitrarily altering our status as a recognized sovereign state that King Kamehameha III had achieved in 1843, more than 100 years before the founding of the United Nations. We just need a few of our Pacific Islands family of nations to trigger this action, and the outcome will free Hawaii from captivity. The good news is that we, the people who love this land, who are the living proof that the sovereign Hawaiian kingdom that was recognized 180 years ago still exists, and as the Lahui, the nation, makes its stand, its ku'e, here in Ko Hawaii Pai'aina, proclaiming and celebrating our nation, we are, in fact, breathing life, instilling hope, and declaring a future for generations of aloha aina.
In this segment of Kumu Hinaʻs Mana'o, I'd like to speak a little bit more to this place that I have come home to, and this is Pānioi in Honokohau. That's the name of our aina, Pānioi. And as a Kanaka who lives in the city, it is oftentimes a very depressing and sad thing for me, because I don't get to truly be free on the island that I live on. And my aina hanau or one hanau of Oahu, it doesn't afford me that. And my aina kupuna here in Honokohau, it allows me to touch base with all the elements, the air, the water, the stream that flows through. I always come and drive further into the valley and touch the water and make sure that I get out and just listen and take it all in. And our lo'ikalo are not as they're not as abundant and plentiful in terms of food producing anymore because of water issues. All of Maui experiences water issues, and that is because of water usage and diversion to places and things that are often too negligent when it comes to my people, our Lahui Kanaka. And my mana'o reminds me that coming to touch base with one's aina kupuna and even on one's aina hanau, how important this relationship is to the land. I can't tell you how much it means for me. As soon as I got out of the car, I went and I enjoyed of the beautiful star fruit just right here in front of me. Like I could walk up and pick all of them without even extending my hand all the way up. And they were so sweet. They were ripe and sweet, and it was just like people envision what coming to paradise is supposed to be. Everywhere I turn, you'd see abundance of niu, all the coconuts on the trees, abundance of ulu, and our ulu is right here in front of us. Mai'a, the not only the breadfruit, but the banana were hanging profusely from trees. Our kalo at one time filled every lo'i patch, and we have other citrus fruit trees. There's so much that could be had, and I have to go home to my aina kupuna to experience this. I went, and first thing I also did was to put a lei on my great grandmother's graveside and to sit there with her for a few minutes and to just express gratitude that I still have some place to come to. But my mana'o for this program is that, number one, we as Kanaka, we have to do our very best to not only retain our identity in the spaces and places that we live, but we have to be able to maintain our relationship with the land that we are born on, that we live on, the land that we come from, and that which we are entrusted to care for, because that is the responsibility. That is the kuleana of Kanaka. Kanaka do not dominate and govern over land. We care for the land and ensure that all we do is contributory to the success and the thriving life of the land. If we take care of the land, it will take care of us. So when I think about my relationship and my ability to cope in modern Hawaii, the relationship with everything around me is contingent upon my relationship with this very land that I and many others of us who are Kanaka, this land that we come from. So I truly hold as a vision for all of our people. I want our people to come back from the continental US. I want them to come back from Great Turtle Island, and we'll continue to engage in activities and work in circles that hopefully one day we'll be able to create that pathway and generate those opportunities for our people to come home. Our people deserve to be on our land. We deserve to be born here on our land, and also we deserve to have our final resting place be on our land, not someone else's. And for all those who will continue to live away in America or anywhere else abroad, so be it. But we should never ever have to live our lives in this lifetime and in the world that we live thinking that we don't have a home to come home to. So I'm very thankful for being able to come here and touch the Aina again here at Panioi in Honokohau, here on the lovely island of Maui. Ke aloha nui ya oko. Aloha.
Mahalo nui a pau. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News. We'll see you next time. Ahui ho kākou. Aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. Ahui ho, aloha aina.
The Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.